I'm Narciso Matos and I work for the Foundation for Community Development in Mozambique, FDC. This morning we were talking about the changes in the world and in Africa. For example, in Northern Africa and Egypt in particular, where a colleague is coming from. And we were asking ourselves the question, what does it mean for our work, for our countries? I think we had a very good conversation. A colleague, Neville, he spoke about, for example, the youth and the fact that there is growing unemployment for youth. We are not, as societies, we have not been as able to cater for their interests, for their expectations today as one would want it to happen, and that over time could be a time bomb. Another colleague was concerned about the fact that even as there is development in general in Africa, 5% growth rate was mentioned in the meeting, but she was concerned to notice that there are still some hotspots in Horn of Africa, in Cameroon, when there are elections, not always they are accepted for one side or the other, and therefore there is a degree of instability, and she couldn't see beyond 5 years or even beyond tomorrow. So I think all in all it was a very good conversation because all of us have expressed how we feel about our countries, about the continent, about the world. Personally, I tend to look at a longer time frame. I recognize that there are all these problems that were mentioned before, and I certainly worry about the youth and the unemployment, and today even educated young people have difficulty in finding jobs in our countries. But all in all, I remind myself of the fact that even when we have instability in a country, for example, after elections, this is a development compared with a time when there were no elections at all. Even as we complain about youth not being employed and so on, there is a difference. Before Africa, the economy of Africa was going down year after year, and now it is growing. Maybe it's not growing at the pace that enables everybody to be employed. We need more of that, but still the background is one of development, one of a continent where in general there is growth, and therefore we should never forget these bigger trends. It is normal that we want quick fixes, especially when we are young. We want to see change in our lifetime. But as you grow old, you start to understand that change takes time. And we as human beings, probably we don't live long enough to see the kind of differences that we would like to see in our societies. And examples like that of Wangara Mutai, we had a conversation about the meaning of her work. We are now celebrating the good things that she did in her country, and even though she has lived and worked for a very short period of time, the results of what she aimed for will be long to achieve, but the trend is set. And the idea that even small differences made by many people ultimately will bring about the kind of change that we want in the continent. So we, as civil society organizations, and that was another topic of our conversation, we cannot and we should not claim to speak for communities. For me, and that's now a personal view, we should be able to speak of things that we know because we work on them, because we have hard data, because we have experimented on children, on women, on agriculture, on advocacy, on human rights, and so on. And therefore, our legitimacy comes from what we do. Our legitimacy comes from the fact that we work on those issues, that we consult the constituencies we are coming from or we work with. And that's the kind of change of role that we can play. We are not political parties, and therefore we cannot, and we are not elected, and therefore we cannot speak for constituencies. We cannot lead the revolutions, because that's another question that was thrown in the room. These revolutions, the Arab Spring, the fact of the matter was that government certainly did not lead it, civil society organizations did not lead it, political parties did not lead it. It was the street, quote unquote. And we can agonize for the fact that we were not there as civil society organizations. But should we really agonize? I don't think so. I don't think it is our role to start revolutions. Our role is to work on people's minds, on empowering communities, and then let those communities lead the processes. So I think we ask ourselves hard questions. We don't have final answers, and that's the beauty of this kind of conversations.